Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dream Leapers Inspiration. I'm your host, Harriet Cole, and I'm so excited to be with you. It's always an honor to spend this time, this kind of quiet time, as it says in the intro, accessing our greatness, pausing so that we can recognize the greatness within and allow it to expand, allow us to feel it. And I was talking to my husband the other day about this broadcast, which we started in April of 2020. That was just as everybody was shut in their homes due to COVID and the pandemic. And we were just trying to figure it out, man. You'd figure out how we could connect to each other, really feeling disconnected, feeling isolated, feeling like we understood better the need for humanity, the need for touch, the need for a hug, right? The need to just interact with people. Even look, we live in New York City, even people you don't know, just being able to walk down the street and you see another human being, and it just makes you feel good. Or at least it does for me and for many people who have gathered with me on this broadcast for all of these years now. Um, we just celebrated Mother's Day, and it was such a beautiful day in so many ways. And I thought it would be really special to devote today's broadcast to the power of a mother. The reality is, every single one of us has or has had a mother. Many of us have had more than one person serving in that mother role. Like, we have people who are assigned as godmother, if you practice that tradition. And, in Christianity, it's called godmother, but honestly, in many, many traditions and family groups and cultures and countries, there are those aunties, those people who either are assigned or who assign themselves to watch over the a child or the children of a community. They are what my mother used to call the eyes in the back of her head, in a sense. Those ladies primarily in the neighborhood, in the community, who would just look out for the children, look out to make sure that they were being shepherded in the right direction, that their steps were aligned with goodness. And we need that. We need that guidance. We need that focus. We need that love that is beyond any kind of love you can imagine. The love of a mother. When I was looking through the quotes to find something to share today, there were some really good ones. But one of them, and this is true, I didn't use it, but I'm going to tell you about it. One of them said, "A mother's love is so great, she will love her child even when nobody else should." When a person has done really wrong and there seem to be no redeeming qualities, it doesn't matter. A mother's love is unconditional, and she's just gonna sweep that child up in her love no matter what. What a feeling, right? What a feeling to know that there is someone in the world who loves you no matter what, who loves you into the depths of your pores. That is so special, and it's, um it's something that I think many of us take for granted. on occasion anyhow, because especially if we have a close relationship with our mothers, it's always there. It's like it's the blanket that always warms you, and you may not even think about it. So the quote I chose for today is a very simple one because I thought that as I was going through the many quotes, simple seemed to be better. So here's the quote. We pulling it up, Fallon. A mother's love liberates. A mother's love liberates. That's from Maya Angelou, the great poet. They like in America, probably the great poet saint. We don't call them that here, but in other countries they do. She was such a wonderful thinker and speaker and communicator and writer. Simple. A mother's love liberates. Isn't it true? Through a mother's love, you can feel buoyed up when moments before, you may have felt down. You feel inspired to take one more step, even if just moments before you didn't feel you had the energy, wherewithal, or courage to take another step. A mother's love liberates. A mother's love frees you of the burdens that may hold you down and potentially lead you in another direction that may not be the direction for you. A mother's love liberates. I have several stories I want to share with you about the mothers in my life, some of them anyway. I'm going to start with my grandmother, who was Carrie Elizabeth Alsop Freeland. She was born in 1889. Yep, not too long after slavery, actually. And she was from Calvert County, Maryland, grew up in Baltimore, Maryland. And she was what she just was. I'll call her a white-skinned Black woman. During that time, all Black people were called colored. She was very fair and not identifiable as a Black woman, but she did not pass. And I'll say she didn't, except for what we've learned. I work with the history makers a lot. For convenience, like if she had to go into the store and buy something, she could walk into the store and buy it when Black people couldn't go into the stores because people assumed she was white. She did that, but she wasn't one of the people who decided she would be white, even though she wasn't. She was very proud to be a colored woman, and she was 4'9", 1 foot shorter than me. She lived to be 101 years old. So as an elder from when I was born, it was just wisdom that she poured into us all the time. She showed us that growing old did not mean that you had to be fragile. When she was in her 80s, she was sitting on the floor cross-legged with me playing jacks, for real. And I don't even remember, but she probably was beating me, although she wasn't, her competition was to help lift us up. But she was playing jacks on the floor in her mid to late 80s. Just think about that. She was a powerful woman who lived through the lens of love. And that is a through line in my family. I did not know her parents, so I can't speak to them, but I can speak about Carrie Freeland, and I named my daughter Carrie for her. I told my sisters when we were growing up, if I ever had children, Carrie was going to be my child's name. So I was reserving that name because I loved her so much. My grandmother was a domestic worker. She worked for wealthy white families in Baltimore for her entire life. My mother made her retire at age 93. That's when she stopped working. And I remember one time, and this goes back to Maya Angelou's quote about a mother's love liberates. In the 70s, I was growing up, and this is a time of Black power, and I remember feeling mad that my grandmother had to work for rich white people. Why does she have to do that? We have enough money. We can take care of her. Why does she have to work at all? But especially, why does she have to work for them? And she would come over our house every Sunday. and we'd have spend the day together and eat together, and it was really sweet. And I asked her this question, my bold little self, and she said, "Come here, sit next to me, sweetheart." And while she was a tiny person, she was a powerful woman, and she looked me straight in the eye, and she had crystal blue eyes, and she said, "Let me tell you something. Don't you worry about who I work for or what I do. I love my work, and I love the people I work with. And when your time comes to work, what you need to do is to love your work, whatever you do, and love the people who work with you. If you live like that, you will have joy, you will have peace, you will have happiness." And she said it so strongly. It was piercing. It was extremely helpful. The liberation that came from that was, while I understand that racism exists, and it still does today, while I understand that unfairness exists, that people can treat each other poorly, especially if one is considered higher than another, whether it's class, whether it is race, whether it is whatever their circumstances might be. She didn't live like that. She looked at people as coming through God, that was why they were on the planet, and that everybody deserved love, everybody deserved to be treated the same, everybody deserved tender loving care and sweetness, and she didn't see color. She just didn't see it that way. Now, she lived a different life than I did, or my father, for example, who's a very tall, dark-skinned man. When you're brown, anybody brown who's watching this now, listening now, it's different. Different in that people see you differently. They see your color first usually. They didn't see that, well, they did see hers, but they assumed differently. I can't presume what it was like to live in her skin, but what I can tell you is she saw people through the light of love. And that, I think, is a very powerful way of looking at people. She also assumed the positive. She assumed that goodness resided in people and that it was possible for your interaction with people to extract that goodness, to water the goodness like you water a flower, and that from that, greatness would evolve, and that it's a choice. And it is a choice. So this notion of a mother's love liberates, just even from Carrie Freeland, I think just may I think of her often. As I say, she lived to be 101. Even though she was old when I was born, she just lived a long time, and by the way, she wasn't sick. She At her 100th birthday party, she was dancing with her son, my uncle Wendell, just up and dancing, not needing apparatus to get her to move. So, love and joy and focus on goodness can also make you healthier, because it can make your mind healthier, your heart healthier. So I hope that as I share these stories of my family, it's getting you to think about your mother, your grandmother, the aunties in your world who are important to you, because this can buoy us, especially if you're feeling tender now. I have a few friends who've lost their mothers very recently. I serve on the board of an organization called Prasad, and one of our board members, Deborah, recently lost her mother, and her mother was such a bright light. And I communicated with Deborah on Mother's Day just to remind her that she isn't the only one who knows how great her mother was. And Deborah, is a mother and now a grandmother. And so that cycle of love continues. And I'm hoping that for any of us who are feeling loss during this period when we remember our mothers, to think of the goodness too. My friend Michelle Dickerson from college just lost her mother, I'm sure she was in her 90s. And what a life to have had. What a blessing to have lived that long and to have shared wisdom that long. I am so incredibly fortunate. My mother, Doris Irene Freeland Cole, is 94 years old and is still smiling, and in honor of her, for you who can see this broadcast, in honor of her, I have on red lipstick just like she wears every day. My mother, Carrie's, child, is a bright light, just like her mother. I figure how some things are considered to be, uh, hereditary? I think that bright light could be hereditary too, because it certainly is true for her. And so, yeah, for those of you who can see, we have some pictures of my mom and my mom and me, which are really sweet. I love that we talk to each other just about every day, that I continue to gain wisdom from her. And, all growing up, one of the things that my mother would say is that you have to choose joy. You have to choose to be happy. You can make that choice, but, how do you wake up every day? What are the choices that you make? And when you make choices to be positive, what happens? So every single day, I would see her get up with a big smile on her face. What my mother and father were definitely glamour girl, glamour boy. We got it from them. She would put on that red lipstick, put on her earrings, put on some cute outfit, and head out for her day. She was a kindergarten teacher for many, many years, and we have seen people who she taught. I told you my mother's 94, so we've seen people who she taught in kindergarten who would come up to her and say, "Mrs. Cole, do you remember me? You taught me in kindergarten." That they remember her from kindergarten is amazing. That's a pretty incredible memory. But what it says is she had an impact on them. That was a forever impact. So see, teacher as mother. That's what Doris Cole has been, teacher as mother, that whatever she offered to those students, the liberation of love and joy and the joy of learning was something that she shared with them. And the upliftment that you are great. Every single one of those little souls she taught, she considered to be great, and they walk with that greatness today. The power of a mother. She mothered over all of them. And by the way, for a lot of the time that she was teaching, she didn't have children. So they were her children. And she poured her heart and soul and knowledge and values into them. And it continues to live within them today. Amazing when we have been with her and these people will say, "Mrs. Cole," they recognize that smile, even as she's changed over the years. One of the things that my mother did for me that liberated me incredibly was when I was in college, my first year. Well, I should back up and say my father was very strict. There are 3 of us, and he said that we all had to go to school locally, and he really wanted us to live at home and go to school locally. That wasn't fun. That wasn't what I wanted to do, but I went my first year in college to, state school, Towson State University. It's a huge school, and I went there. My sister, Susan, my older sister, had gone there, and since I was limited to what I could do and didn't really have a good guidance counselor, quite frankly, in my high school to help me know about other schools, really, I just went to where she went, and it was not good for me. I did not flourish in any way. And I was a very good student always, but it wasn't feeding my spirit. And so my mother saw that. You know how mothers can see things even if you don't say them? I doubt if I complained because I didn't think there was any other option. We had a godfather at Howard University, and she contacted him, got me whatever interview or transcript sending over, whatever we had to do, and got me into Howard. I was a straight A student, so it wasn't hard, but still the effort had to be made. She got me into Howard, and then she did one more thing that I will forever thank her for. My father says he wasn't paying for an out-of-town school, and he kept to that. So my mother came out of retirement after 15 years of being retired. She retired when my younger sister Stephanie was born, and she got a job so that she could pay for me to go to Howard. Think of that. I mean, that is just amazing. First of all, when you've been retired for 15 years, there are a lot of women who may connect to this who are listening now or listening on demand, that if you have been out of the working game for 15 years, it is hard to step back in. It is not easy to prove that you have value to step back in. I work with a lot of people who are in transition through my coaching work, and many people who are in transition and trying to get a foothold back, who really, really they may need to work like my mom did at that time, or um, they just may feel like this is what they want to do at the time. It can be tough. She figured it out. She had resilience. She what did she say? If there's a will, there's a way. She figured out a way. She got a job working for a publishing company selling books to the school system, I believe. And that was how I was able to go to Howard and blossom and prosper. I will always be grateful for her vision, and that absolutely 100% liberated me from an environment. Towson's a great school, but it wasn't the school for me. And Howard was definitely a place where I could thrive. You never know these little things, and one of the things my mother would do, and she still does, less now in her 94th year, but throughout life, she would tell us things. She'd tell me things at different points about herself, different things that had occurred, because even though she lived through the lens of joy, she certainly had plenty of times that were hard times. And only when I needed to know about certain things did she share with me. So I would say, well, how is it that I didn't know that, mommy? How could it be that I've reached this far in my life and I'm just now finding out whatever it was? And she says, I share information on a need to know basis. When you need to know, I share it with you. So when she first said that to me, I was like, well, okay. I wasn't sure how I felt about that because the information would be something like big, a big thing that, wow, I wish I had known that before. And she said, you didn't need to know before. And subsequently now as adults, when my sisters and I talk to each other and Stephanie would say, do you remember when mommy told us this? Or Susan will say that. I'm like, no, I don't remember. Well, maybe I didn't need to know. So fast forward to me as a mom. I didn't envision myself really as having children when I was growing up or even early in my career. I was a career woman. I was definitely um, focused on that. I also had a troubling time as a child when I had a what I would call a best friend and a bad best friend breakup. And as much as my parents loved me, I thought if they couldn't protect me from the pain that I felt from the end of that friendship, then I didn't want to bring children into the world. I really had that. I was 12 or 13. But it was hard, and I bet some of you have had situations where something hurt you so much, you said, "I'm gonna shut the door down to that part of me." And that's what I did as a child. I told myself, "I'm not gonna have children." I think I made the pledge to God that I wasn't gonna have children, I would just live a good life because I was so hurt by this relationship. And so I built my career, a great career, and, uh, doing all kinds of dynamic things that I always wanted to do. And then I think I was 38 years old when I got pregnant. Total shock, and my husband and I were like, "Oh, wow, this is amazing, this is great." Petrifying thought, but okay, this is great, and then I had a miscarriage. But something happened during that pregnancy. I literally felt an awareness within my being that there was another life within me. I don't know if any of you who've had babies have had that feeling, but I felt life. I felt there was something else inside of me that was alive. Every doctor I talked to about this told me I was crazy, they didn't know what I was talking about. I should have talked to holistic people, they probably know what I mean, but it was real. And then one day I didn't feel it anymore, and I went to the doctor, "Something's wrong, something's wrong." And they're like, "I don't know what you're talking about." But we didn't know what you were talking about when you first said it. Okay, fine. Well, as it turned out, I did have a miscarriage. I was in Mexico when it reached a critical point, which was harrowing because I had to be tended to in a hospital there. They were fine, but I don't speak Spanish, and it was scary. I'm not bringing that up to bring anybody down, but just that awareness told me, "Oh, maybe it would be good. Maybe you could be a good mother. Maybe you should do this." And so that's when I stopped trying not to. And 3 years later, my daughter was born, whom I named Carrie for my grandmother. She's actually Carrie Emmanuel Cole Chinsey, so she has all 4 of our family's names in her name. And I'm here to tell you, while I was afraid, what is gonna happen? How am I gonna have my life, my career? How am I gonna be able to do all these things? I ended up being able to do everything plus. Having her has been the greatest joy that I could ever imagine. My career expanded rather than contracted. I knew I couldn't be like my mom and be a stay-at-home mom. It wasn't something I felt I could do just for myself, but also couldn't afford it. And so what I decided to do was to take her with me everywhere. So I was working on a 13-episode television series when I got pregnant. I never told them that I was doing it. Thank goodness I didn't pop until 6 months, and we finished that, taping at 5.5 months. Look at that. I had finished a book. She went on book tour with me when she was a little thing. She would be in one arm, and I would be signing in the other. I remember when she was 8 weeks old, I was invited to do Oprah. Well, you don't say no to the Oprah show, and so I called them, I said, "Well, I have to bring my baby," and I brought my baby, and, Oprah met her, and I even have a picture of her with Oprah, but don't have that right now. My point, the best thing that could have happened to me was to have her. I didn't know that. I didn't know how I would manage as a mother. Every mother out there knows you don't do everything right. But what I can tell you is being an older mother, I brought all of the experience that I had leading up to that moment to her and continue to do that as she's in college. I believe that all of us, those who have birthed children, those who have adopted children, those who are like teachers, those who are godmothers, aunties, we have a responsibility to uplift all of those little angels around us and to show them the possibilities. No matter what happens, bad things happen, we can still be uplifted. Challenging things happen, we can move forward. When you feel loved, when you feel loved by a mother, by your mother, by the mothers in your community, you feel like you can do anything, that you can heal from bad things, that you can get another chance, that you can be liberated from the things that hold you back. It's so true. And today, when I talk to my mother just about every day, ask, "How are you doing?" Sometimes she will say, "I'm doing the best with what I've got left." She's got compromises, as you could imagine for an elder, and her attitude is that of hope and potential and choosing to look through the lens of love and joy. And I'm hoping that you will take that energy with you as you go through this week. The liberating energy of love that a mother offers, wrap yourself in that. Call the aunties, the mothers, the grandmothers, the sisters in your life who have offered that love to you and thank them. Tell them you love them Connect to them because it gives you energy, it gives you power, it softens the rough edges. It helps you to see goodness where maybe a second before you didn't see it. When you can put on the glasses, look through the lens of love at your life and at others, your life is sweeter. It absolutely is, it always is, and it's possible to do even in the tensest of situations. Even when your energy is down, even when you're angry, even when you're hurt, love heals. A mother's love heals better than any other. So if you are blessed to have your mother now, call her, go see her, hug her, say thank you. If you are a mother to others, hug those that you love. And if you're not, just share the love and the goodness that that covers the earth, that covers all of us, because all of us have been touched by a mother's love. Thank you for joining me today. Until next time, have a great day and make it count. Namaste.